Society tells us that winning the rat race is the ultimate prize. It is presented to us from childhood as the only undeniable proof of a life well lived. The corner office, the senior partner title, the expanding portfolio, the constant visible accumulation of status. We are taught that to stop climbing is to fail, and that the only logical direction is upward, no matter the psychological cost. But behind closed doors, far away from the carefully curated networking events and the endless digital broadcasting of corporate achievements, a quietly growing demographic of highly capable men is doing the exact opposite. They are walking away at the absolute peak of their potential. They are not failing, they are resigning. They are not breaking down, they are unplugging. And they are doing it with a cold, calculated precision that baffles the people they leave behind. What did they figure out about the rules of success that the rest of us are too busy competing to even notice? When a man quietly unplugs from the corporate machine, the world's immediate assumption is almost always failure. We tell ourselves he couldn't handle the pressure. We assume he lost his edge, that he burned out, or that he simply lacked the grit required to reach the top tier of his industry. It is a very comforting narrative for those who are still sweating on the treadmill. It protects the fragile ego of the people left behind in the office. But if you look closer, if you actually analyze the behavioral patterns of the men making this choice, the reality presents a deeply uncomfortable contradiction. The men making this choice are rarely the burnouts or the chronically lazy. The data and the quiet reality of their lives show us something completely different. Often they were the most disciplined, hyper-focused, and competent individuals in their respective rooms. They were the fixers, the ones who absorbed the stress of the department, navigated the crises, and delivered the results while others panicked. They did not get ejected from the system because they couldn't keep up with the pace. They methodically located the exit, calculated the exact cost of leaving, and walked through the door without making a sound, never looking back. Which introduces a strange, almost terrifying psychological puzzle. If they are not retreating out of weakness, and if they are genuinely not afraid of hard work, because, as we often observe, they work even harder in their intentional isolation, what is actually happening inside their minds? To understand this, we must dissect the invisible architecture of modern ambition. We have to look at the machinery of the rat race itself. You have to look at what this system actually runs on. It is not money. Money is just the crude fuel, the baseline requirement for survival. The actual engine of the corporate world, the mechanism that keeps highly intelligent people running in circles, is a carefully engineered continuous drip of cheap dopamine. Modern corporate culture demands constant visibility. It thrives on the premature release of neurochemicals. You are structurally encouraged, even forced, to share your goals, to update your network, to celebrate milestones publicly before the actual labor is even finished. We are conditioned from our first days in the workforce to crave this. The subtle nod in a board meeting, the digital congratulations on a promotion, the feeling of being important in a system that ultimately views you as entirely replaceable. But neurologically speaking, this culture of constant broadcasting is a form of psychological sabotage. When you announce your plans and ambitions to the world, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. It gives you the emotional reward of achievement without requiring the actual grueling friction of execution. The rat race keeps you hooked on these cheap external validation loops. You become addicted to the performance of success rather than the substance of it. You become a manager of perceptions. So, what happens when a man's nervous system simply registers this entire loop as toxic? What is the exact psychological trigger that makes a highly effective individual look at the invisible ladder of status and, instead of ambition, feel nothing but a profound, quiet repulsion? It usually doesn't happen in a moment of dramatic, explosive crisis. It happens in a moment of terrifying, silent clarity. This is the most crucial misunderstanding about the men who walk away. They are not running from the work. They are running from the performance. At some point, perhaps during a rainy Tuesday morning commute, or in the middle of a high-stakes strategy meeting that suddenly felt completely hollow, a switch flipped in their brain. They looked at the ultimate prize, the senior executive title, the equity shares, the perceived respect of people they don't even genuinely like or trust. And they realized, with the cold precision of a mathematician solving an equation, that they were playing a rigged game. They realized that the reward for winning the rat race is not freedom. It is simply a faster treadmill. The epiphany is entirely clinical. They don't quit because the game is too hard. They quit because their analytical mind realizes the game is a simulation. The metrics of modern success, the job titles, the digital clout, the corporate hierarchy, the endless accumulation of things designed to break, are entirely artificial constructs. They are agreed-upon illusions designed to keep the machine running. And here is the psychological point of no return. Once your nervous system truly registers that the game is fake, you can never unsee it. You cannot force yourself to care about a plastic trophy once you realize it is made of plastic. The desire to compete doesn't gradually fade over time, it evaporates instantly. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the currency you've been breaking your back to earn your entire life is actually Monopoly money. You wouldn't throw a tantrum. You wouldn't negotiate for more Monopoly money. You would simply stand up, leave the table, and walk out of the room. Which brings us to the core of their psychology, and the reason their existence is so deeply unsettling to modern society. When you strip away the need to perform for an invisible audience, what is actually left? When you no longer need the premature dopamine of telling people what you are going to do, what do you actually build? What these men have achieved is not merely financial independence or geographical isolation. They have achieved something far rarer, and frankly far more dangerous to the status quo. They have achieved absolute psychological sovereignty. In a culture that demands the constant broadcasting of every thought, every meal, and every minor achievement, choosing to become a ghost is the ultimate act of silent rebellion. Their resilience has become entirely analog. It does not require a Wi-Fi connection. It does not require a quarterly performance review. It does not require the approval of a committee. They have completely insulated their self-worth from the market's fluctuations. Instead of seeking status, they seek mastery over their immediate physical environment. They find meaning in tangible friction. They become obsessed with durability in a world obsessed with disposability. They repair old engines. They build structures that will outlast them. They cultivate a piece of land. They dedicate thousands of hours to the slow, quiet mastery of a difficult, practical skill that absolutely no one else will ever see. They keep their dopamine pure, linking the chemical reward solely to the physical execution of the task itself, entirely independent of anyone else's opinion. They operate on an entirely different frequency. They have rejected the modern doctrine of planned obsolescence, not just in the machines they use, but in the way they live their lives. They refuse to be obsolete. They refuse to be upgraded. While the rest of the world might look at them and see men who gave up, the reality is far more intimidating. They didn't give up. They became untouchable. Because how do you control a man who does not want your money? How do you manipulate a man who does not care about his reputation among strangers? How do you leverage a man who genuinely does not want a single thing your system has to offer? You can't. The moment a man stops fearing a drop in status, he exits the matrix of control. He becomes a sovereign entity. He becomes the author of his own reality, dictated by the immutable laws of nature and mechanics, rather than the shifting whims of corporate politics. But this profound level of sovereignty is not without its own deep, hidden psychological risks. This is the part of the story that the romanticized idea of escaping to the woods often conveniently ignores. Unplugging from the machine comes with a danger that very few men are actually prepared for. When you completely remove the external structure of the corporate world, the deadlines, the forced socialization, the artificial pressure of a boss breathing down your neck, you are left entirely alone with your own mind. And for most modern humans, that silence is absolutely deafening. Without the external scaffolding of society to hold you up, what keeps the human mind from completely collapsing in the void? How do you maintain sanity when there is no one left to perform for? How do you build an unbreakable internal discipline when absolutely nobody is watching to hold you accountable? The men who survive this transition don't just relax, they replace the artificial rules of the rat race with a set of internal laws that are infinitely more brutal and unforgiving. If you want to understand the daily mechanics, the invisible analog routines, and the psychological defense mechanisms that keep these men anchored to reality when they step off the edge of the map, you need to understand the dark side of self-reliance. Our next analytical archive decodes the brutal psychology of intentional isolation and the exact daily framework required to survive it. The link to that file is on your screen. Study it carefully